You could sense it before even stepping inside. The screech of plastic wheels against concrete, the buzz of CFAX flickering on the television, and the gentle rattle of milk bottles at first light. None of these sounds remain today. But for anyone who grew up in Britain during the 1980s, each one is etched into memory. We uncovered 20 things that people truly long for from that loud, vibrant, and unforgettable decade. Be warned, some may strike a deep nostalgic chord. Long before smartphones or PlayStations, there was the ZX Spectrum. This rubber-keyed wonder, launched in 1982 by Sinclair Research, transformed British living rooms into digital arenas. It wasn't just a device, it was an initiation. Kids learned to code, loaded games from cassettes, and typed commands like load, while hoping the system wouldn't crash. More than 5 million units were sold, introducing classics such as Manic Miner and Jet Set Willy. For many across the United Kingdom, it was the first time technology felt intimate, loud, slow, and stubborn. But none of that mattered. It made people believe the future had arrived, even if waiting 10 minutes for a game to load tested every ounce of patience. If this content speaks to you, don't let the story end here. Leave a comment, join the conversation, and help us keep these voices alive. Subscribe for more journeys through time, and together, let's ensure these cities are never forgotten. Without further ado, let's continue. In British kitchens of the 1980s, the SodaStream was a household symbol. With its sharp hiss, it transformed ordinary tap water into sparkling fun. Children loved mixing overly strong cola or orange drinks, while parents saw it as a way to cut down on canned sodas. It was more than a gadget, it was a science experiment you could run at home. "Get busy with the fizzy" wasn't only a slogan, it was almost a dare. Before smartphones and weekend jobs at chain stores, countless children in Britain had paper rounds. Waking up before 6 each morning, come rain or shine, to deliver newspapers door to door wasn't just pocket money, it was a lesson in discipline and resilience. A crisp £5 note felt like gold. News wasn't digital back then, and every neighborhood had a cyclist carrying a heavy canvas bag. For many, it was their very first taste of work, and the dawn streets still echo with the sound of letters sliding through metal slots. When Michael Knight arrived on British screens in the mid-1980s, everything shifted. Knight Rider wasn't just another imported series, it was essential viewing. KITT, the talking car, became a legend overnight. Every child dreamed of owning one, and every commercial break seemed unbearable. Broadcast on ITV, it blended technology, action, and American flair in a way no other program did. Friday evenings felt charged, and playgrounds buzzed with chatter about the newest episode. If one television show could return from the 80s, many would vote for this one. Cheap, cheerful, and impossible to forget, mini milk ice creams were part of growing up in Britain during that decade. For only a few pence, you got a creamy frozen delight. Simple yet perfect. They came in chocolate, strawberry, or vanilla and melted faster than you could finish them. Every small shop freezer had them, and every childhood summer memory seemed to include at least one. Before Bluetooth or Spotify, the Sony Walkman reigned supreme as the ultimate cool accessory. This portable cassette player, with its chunky headphones and the satisfying snap of its door, put music in your pocket. Suddenly, life had a soundtrack, and it was yours. Tapes wore down, batteries drained quickly, and pencils doubled as rewinding tools. But none of it mattered. Wearing a Walkman meant freedom, even if your tape held only 9 tracks. Throughout the 1980s, nearly every British neighborhood had its local greengrocer, often family-owned for generations. Long before supermarkets became dominant, this was where apples were weighed on metal scales, potatoes were scooped into paper bags, and smiles accompanied change. They knew your name, your mother's usual order, and the precise tomatoes she wanted. Shopping wasn't only about food, it was about community. And that quiet routine has almost entirely faded away. There was no streaming, no pause button, and no replay option. Missing Saturday morning cartoons meant they were gone forever. Children woke early, cereal bowls in hand, to watch shows like The Raccoons, Dungeons and Dragons, and He-Man. For a few golden hours, television belonged only to kids. It felt like a weekly celebration with flashing colors, booming theme songs, and characters that lived in your imagination all week long. Well before the internet, CFAX and teletext offered Britain a glimpse of instant information. Football scores, headlines, weather updates, and quirky quizzes, all on your TV. Launched by the BBC in the 70s but thriving in the 80s, their blocky graphics and neon text looked like something out of science fiction. You had to type page numbers, 302 for football, 101 for headlines. Slow, clumsy, yet strangely addictive, it felt magical that it even worked. No Style shouted, "80s Britain," louder than the shell suit. Made of shiny, swishy fabric in outrageous neon combinations, it was half sportswear, half fashion statement. Kids, teenagers, and even grandparents wore them. They didn't breathe well, they weren't subtle, but they dominated school discos and high streets. Matching tops and bottoms were essential, and the bolder the pattern, the cooler you were, or at least thought you were back then. Each morning, the clink of glass bottles marked the arrival of the milkman. Left at the doorstep before sunrise with silver, gold, or red foil tops, they were more than milk, they were part of daily rhythm. Birds often pecked through the foil, and returning empties to be collected was a small but satisfying ritual. Television in the 80s wasn't only about programs, it was about the jingles. Advertisements for brands like Bird's Eye, Rally Bikes, and Milky Way became anthems you'd hum at school without realizing. Catchy, short, and unforgettable, many remained stuck in memory decades later. Which one do you still find yourself singing? In the world of magazines, nothing captured the spirit of pop culture quite like smash hits. Packed with glossy posters, cheeky interviews, and complete song lyrics, it was essential for music-loving teens. It didn't just cover pop stars, it amplified them. From Wham to Boy George, it gave fans a sense of belonging. Reading smash hits felt like joining a secret club where humor and silliness mattered as much as music. Before giant electronics retailers took over, there was Rumbelows. During the 80s, it was the go-to shop for televisions, VCRs, and even washing machines. If your telly broke, you often rented or replaced it through them, delivered by someone who likely remembered your postcode. It wasn't glamorous, but it was reliable. Rumbelows disappeared in the 90s, quietly taking a slice of everyday British life with it. Summers were made brighter by the Radio 1 Roadshow, which brought DJs like Steve Wright and Simon Mayo to seaside towns. Beaches transformed into music festivals with giveaways, live acts, and sun-soaked crowds singing along. Families even planned vacations around it. For countless children, it was their first live music experience. Radio brought to life, loud and local. School lunches of that decade were hit or miss, but the puddings became legends. From jam roly-poly with custard to cornflake tart and chocolate sponge with pink sauce, these heavy, sweet desserts were unforgettable. They weren't fancy, but they were comforting. Just hearing their names today brings back the smell of canteens, the scrape of plastic trays, and chatter around long tables. Woolworths, affectionately Woolies, was the beating heart of every high street. Pick and mix sweets, cassette singles, school supplies, toys, and socks could all be found under one roof. A trip to town wasn't complete without stopping by. The candy aisle smell is burned into memory, and its closure felt like an unprepared farewell to a piece of everyday life. Before streaming, visiting the video rental shop was a Friday night ritual. Whether Blockbuster or a small independent store, families browsed covers, argued over choices, and reserved new releases. Horror sections felt thrilling and off-limits. Rewinding tapes before returning them was mandatory. The ritual of renting, watching, and returning was as important as the film itself. Long before YouTube and on-demand content, programs like Tizwas and Multicolor Swap Shop defined Saturday mornings. One brought chaos with water buckets and custard pies. The other let children call in to trade toys or talk to stars. Both were live, unpredictable, and magical. No one knew what would happen next, which made them unforgettable. Few things in 80s Britain were as unsettling as public information films. These short broadcasts, aimed at children and adults, warned about road safety, strangers, or electricity with eerie soundtracks and stark narration. Clips like Charlie Says, The Green Crosscode Man, or the terrifying electricity substation warning became permanently ingrained in memory. Maybe it's the colors, the sounds, or the smells, but the 80s never really leave you. These weren't just objects or shows. They were part of growing up, laughing, learning, and building connections with the world. Which memory struck you the hardest? Or did we miss one that still lives rent-free in your head? Share it in the comments. And if this trip through time made you smile, give it a like and help others rediscover the magic. Because sometimes, the past never truly disappears. For many families, weekend routines often revolved around more than television or gadgets. Trips to the local market, the smell of fresh bread from the bakery, and the hum of neighbors chatting in small shops were part of the soundtrack of everyday life. These weren't just errands. They were community moments that quietly shaped the rhythm of the decade. School playgrounds in the 80s were filled with simple joys that feel rare today. Games of British Bulldog, endless skipping rope chants, and marbles rolling across cracked asphalt created entire worlds of imagination. Children didn't need much, just space, energy, and friends. The laughter carried across neighborhoods, a sound that defined childhood before screens took over. Fashion in the 80s was bold beyond shell suits. Bright leg warmers, oversized hair bows, chunky jewelry, and denim jackets covered in patches turned every high street into an unplanned fashion show. It was a time when self-expression mattered more than rules, and every teenager tried to stand out, even if it meant clashing colors that would never work again. Music wasn't confined to Walkmans or roadshows. It spilled into every corner of life. From Top of the Pops on Thursday nights to mixtapes passed between friends, songs became emotional bookmarks of the decade. Every hit carried memories of summer holidays, school discos, or long bus rides. Even today, hearing those tracks instantly pulls people back to their teenage bedrooms. Technology might have been slower, but it sparked a different kind of excitement. Waiting 10 minutes for a game to load, or carefully untangling cassette tape with a pencil, was frustrating yet oddly rewarding. These challenges gave people patience, resilience, and stories to laugh about years later. In some ways, the struggle was part of the magic. If these memories moved you, don't let the story end here. Leave a comment, join the conversation, and help us keep these voices alive. Subscribe for more journeys through time, and together, let's ensure these cities are never forgotten. See you next time.